The air inside the drilling station was thick with anticipation. Deep-sea operations weren't exactly glamorous, but this time, things felt different. Dr. Elias Verne leaned against the observation window, staring at the monitors that displayed seismic readouts from miles beneath the Earth's surface. His team had been working for weeks on this project, attempting to break through a mysterious layer just above the Earth's core. "This doesn't make sense," murmured Dr. Verne, his eyes locked on the screen. "It's like the readings are bouncing off something solid." "Solid?" came the skeptical voice of Captain James Adler, the military liaison for the project. "The core is supposed to be molten metal, isn't it?" "That's what we thought," Verne replied, his voice tinged with confusion. "But if these readings are accurate, there's something down there, something massive and artificial." Adler's eyes narrowed. He was a man built for action, not for academic conjecture. But the gravity of Verne's words hung in the air. This was no ordinary geological anomaly. "We'll send down another drill," Adler said, his tone measured but firm. "If something's down there, we need to know what." Verne nodded, though his mind was racing. The scientific implications were staggering. If Earth's core wasn't what they thought it was, then everything about the planet's history was about to change. 4 hours later, the next drill descended into the Earth's crust, guided by a swarm of AI-operated sensors. The drill head was reinforced with tungsten carbide, designed to cut through nearly anything. Yet as it approached the mysterious layer, the resistance it encountered was unlike anything Verne had ever seen. "This is insane," Verne muttered as he watched the readouts. "It's like we're hitting an energy field." The words had barely left his mouth when a sharp, high-pitched whine filled the control room. The monitors flickered, and the drilling rig shuddered violently. "Pull it back," Adler barked, stepping toward the console. "Now." But it was too late. A massive burst of light shot up from the drill shaft, knocking the entire station into chaos. Alarms blared, and the lights flickered off, plunging the room into darkness. Verne was thrown to the floor, his ears ringing from the explosion. "What the hell just happened?" Adler growled, pulling himself upright. Verne coughed, his head spinning as he clambered to his feet. I don't know," he gasped, trying to regain his bearings. "But that energy, whatever we hit, it wasn't natural." Before anyone could respond, the monitors flickered back to life, displaying something that made Verne's blood run cold. A glowing, pulsating structure was emerging from the depths, moving upwards through the Earth as though it were alive. "What is that?" one of the technicians whispered. Verne couldn't tear his eyes away. The structure was massive, its glowing veins stretching across the screen like the neural network of some vast, alien brain. "It's a containment system," Verne whispered, more to himself than to anyone else. "And we've just broken through it." By the time Adler had called in backup, the situation was already spiraling out of control. The drilling station had been evacuated, but not before Verne insisted they retrieve the data. What they had uncovered was too important, too monumental to leave behind. 2 days later, Adler and Verne were standing in a classified military facility, miles from the original drilling site. The data they had recovered was now being analyzed by the brightest minds the government could assemble, and the findings were both fascinating and terrifying. "This structure isn't just some random anomaly," Verne said as they stared at the holographic projection of the pulsating energy field they had unearthed. "It's a prison." Adler's brow furrowed. "A prison? For what?" Verne took a deep breath. "We're not sure yet. But the records we've managed to decipher suggest it's been down there for millions of years. Long before humans ever walked the Earth." Adler crossed his arms, his military instincts kicking in. "If it's a prison, that means something or someone is trapped inside. And now that we've breached it, we need to know if we've unleashed whatever it was meant to contain." Verne nodded grimly. "Exactly. We've stirred something ancient, something that was never meant to be disturbed." The door to the briefing room slid open, and a tall, imposing figure entered. General Marcus Strayer, head of military operations, cut a formidable presence. Captain Adler, Dr. Verne, he greeted them with a curt nod. I've reviewed your findings. We're mobilizing a containment team to investigate. You're both coming with us. Adler didn't hesitate. When do we leave? Immediately, Strayer replied, turning on his heel. We need to find out what's down there before it finds us. The descent into the Earth's core was unlike anything Adler had experienced. He had been on missions to the farthest reaches of space, but this plunging into the planet's depths was a different kind of danger. The military had commandeered a prototype drilling rig, capable of reaching the core in a matter of hours. Adler, Verne, and a handpicked team of scientists and soldiers were now inside it, speeding toward the alien prison that lay beneath their feet. Verne sat in the corner of the cramped cabin, nervously tapping at his tablet. He was reviewing the ancient records they had managed to decode fragments of a long-lost alien language that hinted at what lay ahead. Anything useful? Adler asked, strapping himself into his seat as the rig hit another layer of rock. Verne shook his head, his expression tense. Not much. The records are fragmented, but from what I can tell, this prison wasn't designed to hold just one entity. It's a containment facility for multiple alien species, dangerous ones. Adler frowned. How dangerous are we talking? Verne looked up, his eyes dark with worry. Warlords, conquerors, beings of immense power. This prison was designed to hold the worst of the worst. And if they're still alive... Adler finished the thought. We're in serious trouble. The rig shuddered again as they broke through the final layer of rock. A sudden, eerie silence filled the cabin as the drilling stopped, and the crew realized they had reached their destination. We've arrived, came the voice of the rig's pilot over the comms. Opening the hatch. Adler unstrapped himself, his hand instinctively moving to the sidearm on his belt. He glanced at Verne, who was pale but resolute. Let's find out what's really down here, Adler said, stepping toward the exit. The hatch opened with a hiss, revealing a sight that took everyone's breath away. They were standing on the edge of a vast, glowing expanse, a cavern larger than any they had ever seen, its walls lined with pulsating alien structures. But it wasn't the size of the cavern that made Adler's stomach drop. It was what lay at its center. Suspended in the air, encased in an energy field that crackled with power, was a massive alien figure. Its features were humanoid but grotesque, with elongated limbs and armor that seemed to shimmer with an unnatural light. Verne's voice was barely a whisper. That's not just a prisoner, that's a warlord. Adler's heart pounded in his chest as the figure's eyes flickered open. The cavern felt impossibly vast, the walls shimmering with a strange bioluminescence that cast an eerie glow on everything within. The alien warlord floated in the center, encased in a field of crackling energy, its elongated limbs splayed out as if in mid-combat, frozen for eternity. Adler's instincts screamed at him to back away, but his training kept him steady, his eyes locked onto the warlord's massive form. Despite its suspended state, there was something menacing about its presence, as if the very air vibrated with the tension of impending violence. Verne approached cautiously, his tablet in hand, trying to gather data from the energy field. This doesn't make sense, he muttered, running his hand through his hair. The readings are off the charts. It's like this entire place is one big power plant, and that thing in the center is its core. Can you shut it down? Adler asked, scanning the area. His hand rested on his sidearm, though he wasn't sure what good bullets would do against an alien warlord. I don't think we want to, Verne replied, his voice tight with caution. If we tamper with the energy field, we might accidentally release it. Adler frowned. We've already drilled into this place. For all we know, we've already compromised the system. A faint hum began to fill the cavern. Adler's hand snapped to his comm. What's that sound? Talk to me, people. Static crackled in his ear. We're seeing anomalies up here, Captain. The voice of the pilot came through in fragments. Power levels spiking. Might be something down there reacting to your presence. Tell me something I don't know, Adler muttered. He turned to Verne. What do you need to understand this place? We can't stay down here forever. Vern was staring intently at the alien warlord. We need to figure out the control system. Whoever built this prison didn't just lock these creatures up, they built safeguards, fail-safes. If we can find out where the controls are, we might be able to prevent an accidental release. Adler's gaze shifted to the far side of the cavern, where massive stone-like structures loomed, covered in intricate symbols and alien markings. Those look important. Let's check them out. They made their way across the cavern floor, the ground beneath them emitting faint pulses of light with each step. The closer they got to the structures, the more Vern's tablet reacted, the readings becoming increasingly erratic. I've never seen energy signatures like this, Vern said, his voice a mix of awe and anxiety. It's as if the technology here is centuries ahead of anything we've ever encountered. Adler wasn't paying attention. His focus was on something else, a figure. Standing near the base of one of the structures, partially hidden in the shadows, was a figure cloaked in metallic armor. It was humanoid, but clearly not human. Vern, Adler whispered, raising his hand to signal the scientist to stop. We're not alone. Vern froze, his eyes wide as he followed Adler's gaze. The figure seemed to be examining the control panels, its fingers moving across the surface of the alien structure as if it were searching for something. What the hell is that? Vern breathed, inching backward. Keep quiet, Adler ordered, drawing his sidearm. Let me handle this. Adler approached slowly, his weapon trained on the figure. Hey, he called out, his voice echoing through the cavern. Step away from the controls. Hands where I can see them. The figure didn't react at first, continuing its work as if Adler wasn't even there. Then, slowly, it turned. As the light from the cavern illuminated its face, Adler's grip tightened on his weapon. The alien had deep-set eyes, glowing with a soft amber hue, and its mouth twisted into a smirk that sent a shiver down Adler's spine. You're too late, the alien said in perfect, accented English. Its voice was cold, mechanical. Adler blinked, momentarily caught off guard by the language. Too late for what? He demanded, his gun steady. The alien took a step forward, its eyes glowing brighter. This prison was never meant to last forever. Your kind has meddled with forces you don't understand. The warlords, they are waking. Adler's heart pounded in his chest, but his focus remained sharp. We didn't come here to start a war, he said through gritted teeth. Who are you, and what do you know about this place? The alien tilted its head slightly, studying Adler with an unreadable expression. I am no one of consequence, but I serve those who once ruled this prison, those who sought to keep the warlords locked away. I have been here, waiting, ensuring that the containment holds. Adler didn't lower his weapon. And yet, you let us dig our way in. You knew we were coming. The alien's smirk deepened. I could not stop your intrusion. But now that you are here, you must choose. Help me restore the containment, or bear witness to the destruction of your world. Vern stepped forward, his voice unsteady. Wait, what do you mean? We can stop this. The alien's gaze shifted to Vern. Perhaps. But the seals have been weakened. The warlords stir. Already, they sense the breach. If we are to prevent them from escaping, we must act swiftly. Adler's mind raced. The alien could be lying, manipulating them for its own agenda. But if there was even a chance that what it said was true? What do we need to do? Adler asked, his voice firm. The alien extended its hand, gesturing toward the control panels. The prison's core needs to be reactivated, but the power has been disrupted. We must stabilize it before the warlords break free. Vern stared at the control panels, his brow furrowed. This technology is beyond anything we've ever encountered. How are we supposed to? You will follow my instructions, the alien interrupted. There is no time for doubt. Either you help, or you die with the rest of your world. Adler narrowed his eyes. And what's in it for you? The alien's smile faded. Survival. I have no desire to see the warlords return. My purpose here is to ensure that they never escape." A tense silence settled over the group as Adler weighed their options. Every instinct told him not to trust this creature, but the stakes were too high to ignore. If the warlords were as powerful as the alien claimed, then Earth was in far greater danger than anyone had realized. "All right," Adler said finally. "We'll help. But you make one wrong move, and I'll put you down." The alien inclined its head in a gesture that was almost respectful. "I would expect nothing less." They moved quickly, guided by the alien through a series of complex sequences on the control panels. Vern worked feverishly, his mind racing to keep up with the alien's instructions. The energy field surrounding the warlord in the center of the cavern seemed to pulse in response, growing brighter and more unstable with each passing moment. "We're running out of time," Vern muttered, his fingers flying across the controls. The alien glanced at the warlord, its expression unreadable. "The seals are weakening. If we fail, the warlords will break free, and nothing will stop them from reclaiming their power." Adler kept a watchful eye on the alien, his hand never straying far from his sidearm. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than they were being told, but right now they had no choice but to see it through. Suddenly, a deafening crack echoed through the cavern. The energy field around the warlord flickered, then surged violently. "We've lost control of the containment," Vern shouted, panic rising in his voice. "It's—" Before he could finish, the warlord's eyes snapped open, glowing with a fierce, malevolent light. The energy field shattered, and the alien warlord's massive form dropped to the ground with a thud that shook the entire cavern. Adler's blood ran cold as the warlord rose to its full height, its armored body towering over them. The air around it seemed to hum with raw power, and its eyes locked onto Adler with a gaze that promised only destruction. "We're too late," the alien said quietly. The warlord took a step forward, its voice a low, guttural growl. "You will all die." Adler's instincts screamed at him to flee, but his body remained frozen in place. The warlord's presence was overwhelming, its towering form crackled with energy, its armor gleaming like a demon from humanity's worst nightmares. The alien who had guided them stood motionless, its glowing amber eyes watching the scene unfold with a grim expression. "The warlord has awakened. There is no turning back now." Adler swallowed hard and stepped forward, forcing his voice to remain steady. "There's always a way out. Tell me how to stop it." The alien turned to him, its metallic face unreadable. "You can't stop what has already begun. The warlord was the first, but he will not be the last. Soon, the others will awaken, and this planet will burn." The warlord snarled, the sound echoing through the cavern. Its eyes locked on Adler with a hatred so intense, it felt like the air itself was turning toxic. It raised one of its massive arms, an energy weapon embedded in its forearm beginning to charge with a deep hum. "Vern," Adler shouted, backing away. "Get that shield up, now." Vern's fingers were a blur on the control panel, his face drenched in sweat. "I'm trying, but the system's not responding. It's like the whole thing's short-circuiting." The warlord took another step forward, its energy weapon glowing brighter. The heat was palpable, and Adler knew that one blast from that thing would vaporize them all. "Move!" Adler yelled, pushing Vern out of the way just as the warlord fired. A beam of searing energy shot out, slicing through the cavern wall like it was butter. The heat washed over them, singeing Adler's skin even from several meters away. "This is bad," Vern panted, his eyes wide with terror. "This is really bad." Adler grabbed Vern by the arm, dragging him toward the control panels. "We need to get that containment back up. Can you do it or not?" Vern stared at the controls, his fingers trembling. I don't know. The system's too advanced, and everything's destabilizing. We don't have much time before the whole place comes down on us." The alien stepped forward, its calm demeanor in stark contrast to the chaos unfolding around them. "The warlord cannot be contained by the same technology anymore. The only chance you have is to destroy him." "Destroy him? With what?" Adler snapped, his eyes darting between the warlord and the alien. The alien raised its hand, and from its wrist, a holographic display flickered into existence. "There is a weapon buried deep within this prison, one designed to neutralize the warlords permanently, but it was sealed away when the prison was created." Adler's mind raced. "And how do we access it?" The alien's eyes flickered with an almost sad light. "I can guide you to it, but it will require you to enter the deepest chambers of the prison. The journey will be perilous, and the warlords will not wait for you to succeed." Adler cursed under his breath. "Sounds like we don't have much of a choice." He turned to Vern. "Can you buy us time?" Vern's face was pale, but he nodded. "I can try to reroute the remaining power to delay the other warlords from waking up, but it's risky." "Do it," Adler ordered, "and make sure you don't blow us all to hell in the process." Vern didn't respond, his focus already back on the control panel, his hands moving with renewed urgency. The warlord, sensing that its prey was out of immediate reach, began to scan the room with a chilling calm, its eyes burning with anticipation. Adler turned to the alien. "Lead the way. If there's even a chance this weapon can take him down, we need to move now." Without another word, the alien nodded and began moving toward a dark tunnel on the far side of the cavern. Adler followed, his heart pounding in his chest, adrenaline coursing through his veins. As they descended deeper into the ancient structure, the air grew colder, and the light from the bioluminescent walls dimmed. "Why was this prison built here?" Adler asked, his voice barely above a whisper as they ventured into the shadows. "Why Earth?" The alien's voice echoed softly in the narrow passage. "Earth was not always the world you know. Long before your species evolved, this planet was chosen for its unique qualities, its deep, dense core, its natural energy fields. It was the perfect prison, a place where the warlords could be contained, far from the rest of the galaxy." Adler frowned. "And what happens if they escape?" The alien glanced at him, its glowing eyes cold. "Then your world will be consumed in fire and death. The warlords will stop at nothing to reclaim their power and conquer the galaxy once more." They reached a massive door, carved with intricate symbols and strange markings that seemed to pulse with a faint light. The alien raised its hand, and the door responded, sliding open with a low rumble. Beyond it lay a chamber unlike anything Adler had ever seen in ancient, cathedral-like space filled with towering pillars and alien machinery that seemed to stretch on forever. In the center of the chamber stood a pedestal, atop which rested a strange, glowing device. It was no larger than a human skull, but it radiated a power that Adler could feel in his bones. "This is the weapon," the alien said, stepping aside. "It is called the Oblivion Key. Once activated, it will send a pulse through the prison's core, disrupting the warlords' energy and rendering them vulnerable." Adler stared at the device, a deep sense of unease settling over him. "And what's the catch?" The alien's gaze remained fixed on the Oblivion Key. "The energy required to use it will destabilize the core. Once you activate the key, this prison will collapse. You must escape before the entire structure is consumed." Adler let out a slow breath. Of course, it's never simple. He reached out, his hand hovering over the Oblivion Key. "So I just activate this thing, and it'll take care of the warlord." The alien nodded. "Once activated, the warlord will be vulnerable to conventional weapons, but you must act quickly. The other warlords will not remain dormant for long." Adler clenched his jaw and grabbed the device. As soon as his fingers closed around it, a surge of energy shot through his body, and the room seemed to pulse with an otherworldly power. "The key is ready," the alien said, stepping back. "Now go. You have little time." Adler turned to leave, but something stopped him. A thought that had been nagging at him since they had entered the prison. He glanced back at the alien, his eyes narrowing. "Why are you helping us? What's your real motive?" The alien's expression didn't change, but there was a long pause before it spoke. Because, Captain Adler, I too was once imprisoned here. I was one of the architects of this place, a guardian of the galaxy's most dangerous secrets, and now I seek redemption for the mistakes we made. Adler stared at the alien for a long moment before nodding. Let's hope that redemption comes in time. With the Oblivion Key in hand, Adler sprinted back through the dark tunnels, his mind racing. Behind him, the alien's warning echoed in his ears. Time was running out. As he re-entered the cavern, the warlord's gaze snapped to him, its eyes blazing with fury. The creature roared, its massive form charging toward Adler with terrifying speed. "Vern!" Adler shouted, raising the Oblivion Key above his head. "Get ready. We're about to have one hell of a fight." The warlord's monstrous form thundered toward Adler, its glowing eyes fixated on him, radiating rage. The ground trembled beneath its heavy footfalls, sending debris falling from the cavern's ceiling. Adler's pulse raced as he clutched the Oblivion Key, the weight of the alien device almost suffocating in his hands. "Vern!" Adler screamed as the warlord's energy weapon began to charge once more. "Get that shield online now." Vern's fingers flew across the console, sweat pouring down his face. "I'm doing everything I can. You have to hold it off for just a few more seconds." A few seconds? Adler thought grimly. The warlord would tear them apart in half that time. The warlord roared, unleashing a torrent of energy from its weapon. Adler threw himself behind one of the remaining pillars as the blast incinerated the space where he had been standing. His mind scrambled for a plan. If Vern couldn't get the shields up, they were finished. Then the alien's words echoed in his mind. Once activated, the warlord will be vulnerable to conventional weapons. That was the opening they needed, but Adler had no idea how long it would last. Steeling himself, Adler glanced at the Oblivion Key, its strange energy still pulsing through him. He had to trust that the alien's guidance wasn't leading them into a death trap. With no other choice, he sprinted from behind the pillar, dodging another blast from the warlord. "Vern, fire on my signal," Adler shouted, gripping the key tightly. The warlord was closing in fast now, its sheer size and strength filling the cavern with dread. Adler raised the Oblivion Key, heart pounding as the device began to glow brighter, humming with energy. A pulse of blue light radiated from the key, washing over the warlord in waves. The effect was immediate. The warlord staggered, its once impenetrable armor flickering, the energy shielding it weakening. For the first time since awakening, the warlord hesitated, its massive form visibly shaking as the key's power began to take hold. "Now, Vern, hit it now," Adler bellowed. Vern didn't need to be told twice. With a final keystroke, he activated the plasma cannon embedded in the cavern's ceiling, and a blinding bolt of energy slammed into the warlord's chest. The beast howled in pain, its armor buckling under the assault. Adler grinned, the tide finally turning. "Keep firing, Vern, don't let up." The plasma cannon fired again, hitting the warlord square in the torso. The massive creature stumbled backward, roaring in defiance, but its strength was fading fast. Adler dashed toward the warlord, adrenaline pumping through his veins. He had to end this now before the other warlords awakened. The Oblivion Key pulsed in his hand, guiding him closer, as though it had a mind of its own. The warlord made one last attempt to retaliate, its weapon flaring to life. But its movements were sluggish now, the energy within it rapidly destabilizing. Adler seized the opportunity, leaping onto a nearby platform and driving the Oblivion Key into the warlord's chest with all his strength. There was a blinding flash of light as the key activated fully. The warlord's body convulsed, arcs of blue energy surging through its veins as its power was siphoned away. With a final, agonizing roar, the warlord collapsed, its massive frame crashing to the ground, motionless. Adler staggered back, breathing heavily. The warlord lay defeated, its once terrifying form now reduced to a lifeless husk. But there was no time to celebrate. Behind him, the ground began to rumble ominously, and Adler knew that the prison's core was starting to collapse. The Oblivion Key had done its job. but the cost was clear. The entire facility was about to come down around them. "Vern, we need to move. Now," Adler shouted, sprinting back toward the control station. Vern's wide eyes met his, panic flashing across his face. "The other warlords, they're starting to wake up. We don't have time." Adler grabbed Vern by the arm, dragging him toward the exit. "Forget them. We need to get out of here before the whole place goes under." The alien appeared at the mouth of the tunnel, its expression calm, but its voice urgent. "This way. The surface is near, but the collapse is accelerating. You must hurry." The three of them raced through the labyrinth of tunnels, the walls shaking violently as the core's destruction became imminent. Chunks of rock and debris fell around them, and the air was thick with the sound of grinding stone and collapsing metal. Adler's lungs burned as they pushed forward, but he couldn't afford to slow down. The sound of awakening warlords echoed through the prison, muffled roars, and the ominous hum of energy weapons powering up. "We're almost there," Vern shouted, his voice barely audible over the chaos. They burst into the final chamber, where a massive transport pad stood waiting. The alien moved swiftly to the control panel, its hands moving with practiced precision. "This will take you to the surface. Once there, you must destroy the entrance to prevent any of the warlords from escaping." Adler turned to the alien, his brow furrowed. "What about you?" The alien hesitated for a moment, its gaze distant. "My place is here. I will ensure the collapse is complete." Adler opened his mouth to argue, but the alien cut him off. "Go, Captain Adler. There is no more time." Reluctantly, Adler nodded. He and Vern stepped onto the transport pad as the alien activated the controls. The last thing Adler saw before the world blurred around him was the alien, standing stoically as the cavern collapsed in on itself. The next moment, they were on the surface, the cool night air a stark contrast to the chaos they had just escaped. In the distance, the ground trembled as the prison beneath them continued to collapse. Adler turned to Vern, who was staring wide-eyed at the devastation. "We need to seal the entrance. Now." Vern snapped out of his daze, rushing to the equipment they had left behind. He activated the detonation sequence for the charges they had placed earlier. A low rumble followed by a deafening explosion echoed through the air as the entrance to the ancient prison was obliterated, sealing the warlords inside forever. Adler let out a long breath, the weight of the moment finally settling over him. It was over. For now. But as he stared at the smoking remains of the prison, a chill ran down his spine. The warlords had been defeated, but the alien had said there were more prisons like this, other places where ancient horrors lay dormant, waiting for their moment to rise again. And Adler knew that their battle was far from over. The surface was eerily silent, save for the occasional rumble of collapsing rock from below. Adler stared at the ground where the alien prison had once stood, his mind racing with the implications of what they had just survived. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving behind exhaustion and the weight of what they had learned. Vern was still panting beside him, staring blankly at the destruction. We just sealed away an ancient warlord," he muttered, as if saying it aloud would make it more believable. Adler remained silent. His thoughts were drawn to the alien, its cryptic words about more prisons scattered across the galaxy. This was only the beginning. "We've got to report this," Vern continued, rubbing his temples as if trying to wrap his head around everything. "The governments, the military, they need to know." Adler snapped out of his reverie. "And what exactly are we going to tell them?" His voice was bitter. "That there's an entire network of alien warlords locked away in Earth's core and scattered across space. That humanity's sitting on top of ancient death machines waiting to be unleashed." Vern's face paled, the realization sinking in. "What if they don't believe us?" "They won't," Adler said flatly, standing up and wiping the dust off his uniform. "They'll think we've lost our minds. Or worse, they'll come after us for what we know." The cold night air bit at their skin as Adler began gathering their remaining gear. He was already thinking about their next move. The government was out of the question. They'd be detained and silenced before they could even finish their report. But they couldn't sit idle either. "We're on our own, Vern," Adler said, slinging his pack over his shoulder. "But that alien trusted us for a reason. We have the Oblivion Key, and we know where the other prisons are. It's our responsibility now." Vern frowned, still reeling from the enormity of it all. "You're saying we go after the others? The other warlords?" Adler's jaw tightened as he glanced at the smoking ruins of the alien prison. "We don't have a choice." The two men began the long trek back to their camp, where their remaining supplies and transport waited. It felt surreal, the quiet countryside around them, the stars twinkling innocently overhead. How could the world remain so unchanged when they had just uncovered something so monumental? As they walked, the soft crunch of dirt under their boots was the only sound. Adler's mind churned, piecing together a plan. The alien had mentioned other prisons, but it had also hinted at something else, something even more dangerous than the warlords themselves. "We need to figure out what the Oblivion Key really is," Adler said abruptly, breaking the silence. The warlord recognized it, feared it. "This thing is more than just a tool to wake them up." Vern glanced at the device in Adler's hand, its surface still shimmering faintly with alien energy. "Maybe the alien was one of the original creators of the key," Vern speculated. "Whoever built those prisons must have had some way of controlling the warlords." "That's what I'm hoping," Adler muttered. But deep down, he feared the key might be something far more dangerous than just a prison control device. The horizon began to brighten as dawn approached, casting long shadows over the landscape. They reached their transport, an old, battered military jeep outfitted with some modern tech, just enough to keep them off the radar. As they loaded up their gear, Adler noticed something on the horizon. A convoy. Adler's instincts kicked in, and he motioned for Vern to duck down behind the jeep. The convoy, a series of sleek, unmarked military vehicles, was approaching fast. There was no doubt in Adler's mind that they weren't friendly. "How the hell did they find us?" Vern hissed, his eyes wide with panic. "They've been tracking us," Adler said grimly. "Someone's been watching this site." Adler's mind raced as the vehicles closed the distance. They were outnumbered and outgunned, and with the warlord's prison sealed beneath them, the last thing they needed was a firefight. He glanced at the Oblivion Key in his hand, then at Vern. "We have to get out of here," Adler whispered urgently. "Now." Vern nodded, sliding into the driver's seat of the jeep. "I'll drive. You figure out where we're going." Adler jumped into the passenger seat, scanning the terrain ahead. The convoy was closing in, dust kicking up behind their tires. They wouldn't be able to outrun them on the open road. "Off-road," Adler ordered. "Head for the hills. We'll lose them in the forest." Vern nodded, slamming his foot on the gas. The jeep lurched forward, bouncing over the uneven ground as they veered off the main road and headed toward the distant tree line. The convoy adjusted course, following them. Adler could see the silhouettes of soldiers through the windows of the lead vehicle, heavily armed, and likely prepared to take them by force. "We can't let them get the key," Adler growled, gripping the device tightly. "We can't let anyone get it." The jeep roared over the rough terrain, jostling them with every bump and dip. The forest was their only chance now. If they could reach the trees, they might be able to lose the convoy in the dense underbrush. But the vehicles behind them were gaining fast. "They're getting closer," Vern shouted over the roar of the engine. Adler's mind raced. They couldn't afford to get caught. If these men worked for whoever had been monitoring the alien site, they knew far more than they were letting on. And if they got their hands on the Oblivion Key, the consequences could be catastrophic. As the forest loomed ahead, Adler made a snap decision. "Take the next turn into the ravine," he ordered, pointing toward a narrow gap in the landscape. It was risky, but it might be enough to slow the convoy down. Vern gritted his teeth and yanked the steering wheel, sending the jeep careening toward the ravine. They plunged into the narrow pass, the walls of the gorge closing in around them as they sped through the rough terrain. Rocks scraped against the sides of the vehicle, and Adler's knuckles turned white as he gripped the dash. The convoy followed, their speed slowing as they navigated the treacherous path. It bought Adler and Vern a few precious seconds, but the lead vehicle was still closing in. "They're not giving up," Vern muttered through clenched teeth. Adler cursed under his breath, looking down at the Oblivion key in his hand. The device pulsed with faint energy, as though sensing the danger they were in. He had no idea how to use it beyond what the alien had shown them, but if there was ever a time to try, it was now. "Hold on," Adler said, gripping the key tightly and focusing his mind on it. He didn't know what he was doing, but he willed the device to respond, to do something, anything, to get them out of this. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sudden surge of power, the key activated. The air around them shimmered, and a wave of energy burst from the device, rippling through the ravine. The lead vehicle, just seconds from closing the gap, was caught in the wave. The convoy was thrown into chaos. Vehicles skidded off the path, tires screeching as they lost control. The lead vehicle careened into the rock wall, its engine smoking as it came to a halt. The others followed suit, their pursuit halted by the strange energy that had knocked out their systems. Adler and Vern sped out of the ravine, the convoy left behind in a cloud of dust. "What the hell did you just do?" Vern asked, his voice a mix of awe and fear. Adler stared at the Oblivion key, still glowing faintly in his hand. "I don't know," he admitted. "But whatever it was, it bought us some time." They drove in silence for a while, the tension slowly fading as they put more distance between themselves and the convoy. But Adler couldn't shake the feeling that their problems were far from over. The Oblivion key was powerful, far more powerful than they had realized. And now they had enemies after them who knew exactly what they were carrying. They weren't just running from an ancient alien threat anymore. They were being hunted. The jeep finally sputtered to a halt in the shadow of a thick forest, its engine wheezing from the strain of their desperate escape. Vern switched off the ignition and slumped over the steering wheel, his face slick with sweat. "Think we lost them?" Vern asked, his voice trembling. Adler scanned the horizon, listening intently for any sign of pursuit. The wind rustled the leaves, and the distant chirping of birds seemed oddly out of place after the chaos they had just fled. "For now," Adler muttered, "but they'll be back." Vern wiped his brow, clearly shaken. "That thing," he pointed at the Oblivion key in Adler's hand. "You have to figure out what it really is, Adler. We can't keep running from this without knowing what we're dealing with." Adler stared down at the key, its alien symbols glowing faintly. The device felt cold and heavy in his hand, as though it carried a burden far greater than he had anticipated. He knew Vern was right, running wouldn't solve anything. Sooner or later, they'd have to face whatever forces were now after them. But first, they needed answers. "We're heading to the nearest comm station," Adler decided. "We'll send a message to our contacts. See if they've picked up any chatter about the convoy or anyone hunting us." Vern frowned, looking uneasy. "What if the government's already involved? What if they're part of it?" "They might be," Adler admitted. "But we have to risk it. We need intel, and we can't do this alone." Vern didn't look convinced, but he nodded. "All right, but we move fast. The longer we wait, the more time they have to track us." The two men climbed out of the jeep, grabbing their gear and making their way into the thick forest. The dense foliage provided some cover, and the ground beneath their feet was soft, muffling the sound of their footsteps. Every now and then, Adler would glance over his shoulder, half expecting to see soldiers emerge from the trees. But the forest remained still. As they hiked deeper into the wilderness, Adler's thoughts kept returning to the warlord they had imprisoned below the Earth's crust. The sheer power of the creature, and the prison itself, made him wonder just how long these ancient forces had been hidden from humanity, and who else knew of their existence. Eventually, they reached a small clearing where Adler set up a makeshift comms array. It was a cobbled-together piece of tech that operated off-grid, using encrypted signals to bounce their transmissions across multiple relays. With any luck, their pursuers wouldn't be able to trace it. Adler tapped into the system, inputting a series of codes and frequencies. After a few tense moments, the screen flickered to life, and a secure line opened. A familiar voice crackled through the speaker. "Adler? Is that you?" "Yes, Reyes. It's me," Adler replied, relieved to hear his old contact's voice. "We've got a situation." Reyes sighed, the weariness evident in her tone. "I had a feeling you'd say that. We've been monitoring some strange activity around your last known coordinates. Unmarked military convoys, encrypted signals, all the hallmarks of something big going down. What did you uncover?" Adler hesitated, unsure of how much to reveal over the comms. "We found something buried beneath the surface, something old and dangerous, and now it seems there are people whoever they are trying to get their hands on it." Reyes was silent for a moment, processing the information. "That sounds like classified territory, Adler. If what you're saying is true, you're in serious trouble. And if the wrong people are involved—" "I know," Adler cut in. "That's why we need your help. Can you dig around? See if you can find out who's behind the convoy and the soldiers that were after us. We don't have a lot of time." "I'll see what I can do," Reyes replied, her tone grim. "But I can't promise anything. If this goes all the way to the top, we might not be able to protect you." Adler clenched his fists. "Just do what you can." The line went dead as Reyes signed off, leaving Adler and Vern standing in the clearing, the weight of uncertainty hanging over them. Vern looked anxious. "What now?" "We wait for Reyes to dig something up," Adler said, packing up the comms array. "And in the meantime, we figure out how to stay ahead of whoever's hunting us." But even as Adler spoke, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. The Oblivion key throbbed faintly in his hand, its cold surface almost alive with power. Adler knew they weren't just being hunted for the device, it held the key to something far greater, something that could change the fate of humanity. As they moved deeper into the forest, the wind began to pick up, the branches overhead swaying ominously. Adler felt a chill run down his spine, a sense of impending doom creeping over him. "Adler, look," Vern said, his voice shaky as he pointed to the sky. Adler looked up and froze. In the distance, the clouds were parting, and something massive was descending from the heavens. A ship unlike anything Adler had ever seen hovered above the horizon, its dark silhouette blotting out the stars. It wasn't human. The design, the sheer scale of it, it was alien. "They're coming for the key," Adler muttered, his heart pounding. Vern's eyes were wide with fear. "We can't fight that. What do we do?" Adler's mind raced, but the options were grim. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and now, it seemed, outclassed by forces far beyond their understanding. But as the alien ship hovered closer, its engines humming with otherworldly energy, Adler made a choice. "We run," he said, his voice steady. "We run, and we figure out how to use this key before they do." With that, Adler and Vern sprinted through the forest, the looming threat of the alien ship casting a dark shadow over their path. Time was running out, and the ancient warlords imprisoned beneath Earth's surface were only the beginning. Somewhere deep inside, Adler knew they weren't just fighting to survive anymore. They were fighting for the future of humanity itself. The trees whipped past in a blur as Adler and Vern dashed through the underbrush, the sound of their heartbeats thundering in their ears. The ground beneath their feet felt alive, each step echoing with the pulse of urgency. The ominous shadow of the alien ship loomed overhead, a reminder that time was not on their side. Adler's mind raced with possibilities. They needed to get to a more defensible position, somewhere they could strategize and perhaps uncover the true power of the Oblivion key. The forest was dense, but that meant cover and potentially traps. He could only hope the ship hadn't deployed scouts. "Where are we headed?" Vern gasped, struggling to keep pace. His face was flushed, a sheen of sweat coating his brow. "Follow me," Adler shouted, veering to the right where the foliage thickened. He could see a ridge ahead, the landscape rising sharply. If they could reach the top, they might gain a vantage point. Perhaps they could find a way to signal for help, or even learn more about their pursuers. As they reached the ridge, Adler crouched low, his breath coming in quick bursts. They could see the ship clearly now, a massive, dark form, with metallic tendrils extending toward the ground like a spider's legs. It hovered silently, almost ominously, while beams of light scanned the area below. "Adler, look," Vern pointed. "There are figures down there, alien soldiers." Adler squinted, trying to make sense of what he saw. The figures were tall and lithe, clad in a strange combination of armor that glimmered with an unnatural hue. They moved with eerie precision, their eyes glowing faintly as they scanned the surroundings. It was evident they were searching for something or someone. "We need to keep moving," Adler said, adrenaline surging through him. "We can't let them catch us." The two men crawled along the ridge, using the trees for cover as they moved deeper into the forest. As they crested a small hill, Adler spotted a dilapidated structure in the distance, a cabin, worn by time but still standing. It could offer shelter, a place to regroup. "Over there," Adler whispered urgently. "That cabin." Vern nodded, determination etched on his features. "Let's go." They dashed toward the cabin, adrenaline pushing them forward. The old wooden structure creaked ominously as they approached, the door hanging slightly ajar. They slipped inside, hearts pounding. Once inside, Adler scanned the interior, searching for anything that could aid them. The cabin was dimly lit, dust motes swirling in the shafts of light that broke through the cracked windows. It was empty, save for remnants of a past life, a rusted stove, a tattered couch, and a table strewn with old newspapers. "Let's barricade the door," Vern suggested, his voice tense. "We need to buy ourselves some time." Adler nodded and moved to the door, pushing a heavy wooden crate against it. "If they're looking for the key, we can't let them find us." After securing the entrance, Adler took a deep breath and activated the Oblivion key. The symbols flared to life, casting an ethereal glow that illuminated the cabin. "What are you doing?" Vern asked, eyes wide. "I'm going to see if this can tell us anything," Adler replied. He concentrated, focusing on the device, willing it to reveal its secrets. The symbols began to shift and change, the light pulsing in response to his thoughts. A holographic projection flickered to life in the center of the room, displaying a sprawling map of Earth with a glowing marker at its core. Adler's heart raced as he recognized the area. It was where they had been before, the location of the ancient prison. "Look," he exclaimed, pointing at the map. "It's showing us the prison." The hologram zoomed in, revealing a network of tunnels and chambers that extended deep into the earth. Lines branched out, indicating pathways and potential access points. "Can it show us how to access it?" Vern asked, leaning closer. Adler focused again, and the map began to shift. New symbols emerged, highlighting various entrances and routes. "Yes, but it's not straightforward. There are security measures we need to bypass." Before Vern could respond, the sound of something heavy hitting the ground echoed outside, jolting them both into action. "They're here," Adler hissed. The glow from the Oblivion key flickered as Adler hurried to hide it. "We need to find a way to the prison," he said, his voice low. "If we can reach it, we might find a way to turn the tide against them." Vern's expression shifted from fear to determination. "Let's do it. We can't let them get the key." Adler activated the map again, his mind racing. "There's a tunnel nearby only a few hundred yards away. It leads directly to the prison. If we can get there before they find us, we might be able to seal the prison back up." They exchanged a glance, and without another word, they moved swiftly, navigating through the cabin and out the back door. The forest loomed dark and foreboding, but they had no choice. They needed to push forward, to risk everything for the sake of humanity. As they made their way through the underbrush, the distant sound of voices reached their ears, a harsh, guttural language echoing through the trees. They were getting closer, and Adler could feel the tension in the air thickening. Suddenly, Vern stumbled, tripping over a hidden root. Adler reached out, steadying him before they fell into the open. "Careful," he whispered urgently. "Sorry," Vern muttered, brushing off the dirt. unjust, on edge. Adler nodded, sharing in the anxiety. They pressed on, the weight of the Oblivion Key pulling at Adler's thoughts. The closer they got to the tunnel, the more he felt the presence of the ancient warlords beneath the surface, as though they were awakening. After what felt like an eternity, they reached the entrance of the tunnel. It was partially obscured by foliage, the earth around it disturbed as though something had clawed its way out. A chill ran down Adler's spine. "Here it is," he said, peering into the dark maw of the tunnel. "We go in fast and quiet." Vern swallowed hard. "What if we encounter those soldiers down there?" "We'll deal with it together," Adler replied, determination hardening in his voice. They stepped into the darkness, the air cool and damp as they descended into the unknown. The tunnel walls were lined with strange markings, similar to those on the key. Adler's heart raced, the pulsing of the device in his pocket syncing with the energy of the ancient symbols surrounding them. "Stay close," Adler whispered, the faint glow from the key barely illuminating the path ahead. They moved carefully, every sound echoing ominously in the confined space. As they progressed deeper into the tunnel, Adler felt a sense of purpose ignite within him. They weren't just escaping anymore. They were on the cusp of uncovering the truth about the prison, the warlords, and humanity's role in the galaxy. But as they rounded a corner, a low growl reverberated through the air, chilling them both to the bone. Something was waiting for them. The growl echoed in the confined space, sending a chill coursing through Adler's spine. He froze, the hairs on the back of his neck standing on end. Vern, sensing the shift in the atmosphere, held his breath, his eyes wide with fear. "Did you hear that?" Adler whispered, his voice barely above a murmur. "Yeah," Vern replied, his voice trembling slightly. "What was that?" "I don't know, but we need to move," Adler urged, gripping the Oblivion Key tightly. "We can't let whatever that is find us." They edged forward cautiously, each footstep deliberate, as they ventured deeper into the tunnel. The low growl morphed into a series of guttural noises, like a distant beast communicating with its kin. Adler's instincts screamed at him to run, but he fought to remain composed, focusing on their goal. They continued down the tunnel, the air growing heavier with anticipation. A flickering light began to emerge in the distance, illuminating strange patterns etched into the walls. The glow was reminiscent of the symbols on the Oblivion Key, pulsating in rhythm with Adler's heartbeat. "What is that?" Vern whispered, glancing nervously at Adler. "I don't know," Adler replied, curiosity mingling with dread. "But we need to find out." As they drew closer to the light, the growling intensified, morphing into a chorus of hisses and snarls. Adler's pulse quickened. Whatever awaited them was not friendly. They reached the entrance of a vast chamber, the source of the light now blindingly bright. Peering inside, Adler's breath caught in his throat. The chamber was massive, its high ceilings disappearing into shadow, and the walls shimmered with the same symbols they had seen earlier. In the center stood an enormous, shimmering force field, pulsating with energy. And beyond that force field were shapes humanoid forms encased in glass-like cells, their eyes filled with a mix of anger and despair. They were trapped, imprisoned by the very technology that once held them as captives of an ancient race. Those must be the warlords," Vern gasped, stepping into the chamber. "Wait," Adler warned, grabbing Vern's arm. "We need to be careful." But it was too late. The noise intensified as several alien soldiers materialized from the shadows, their glowing eyes locking onto the intruders. The creatures were tall and thin, with skin that shifted color like a chameleon, blending seamlessly with their surroundings. They had elongated limbs, ending in razor-sharp claws, and their mouths were filled with rows of glistening teeth. Adler's heart raced. "We need to find a way to shut down the force field. It's the only chance to save them." The soldiers advanced, their movements fluid and precise. Adler could see their glowing eyes narrowing as they prepared to attack. "Vern, over there," Adler pointed to a console on the far wall, its surface covered in symbols similar to those on the Oblivion Key. "I'll cover you," Vern shouted, stepping in front of Adler, brandishing a rusty metal rod he had picked up from the cabin. Adler dashed toward the console, fingers trembling with anticipation. He had no idea how to operate the alien technology, but he had to try. As he reached the console, the glowing symbols seemed to respond to the presence of the Oblivion key, shifting and rearranging in a dance of light. Come on, he urged under his breath, desperately tapping buttons and symbols. The console whirred to life, screens illuminating with data streams that made no sense to him. Behind him, Vern swung the rod, striking one of the advancing soldiers. The creature recoiled, hissing, but it quickly regained its composure, lunging for Vern. Adler glanced back, heart racing as he saw his friend grappling with the alien. "Vern!" Adler shouted, refocusing on the console. He felt the heat of panic coursing through him, but he fought to maintain clarity. The symbols on the console resembled those on the key. Maybe there was a way to initiate a sequence, to unlock the cells. As he pressed a sequence of symbols that felt instinctively right, the force field flickered, sending waves of energy rippling through the chamber. Adler's heart soared. Something was happening. Suddenly, a deafening roar erupted from the chamber's depths. The growl that had haunted them morphed into a primal scream, reverberating through the air like thunder. Adler turned, eyes wide with fear. From the shadows emerged a massive creature, towering over the soldiers. Its body was a mix of scales and fur, its limbs powerful and muscular, and its eyes glowed with an intelligence that sent chills down Adler's spine. This was no mere guardian. This was a warlord, one of the very beings they had been sent to confront. "Adler, we need to go," Vern shouted, dodging a claw swipe from the soldier. The cabin rod had broken against the alien's hardened skin, and Vern was scrambling backward, panic etched on his face. "No, I can't leave without unlocking them," Adler yelled back, focusing on the console. The warlord stepped closer, its presence filling the chamber with an oppressive energy. Adler could feel the weight of its gaze, a mixture of anger and something else, curiosity, recognition. In a moment of desperation, Adler raised the Oblivion key, feeling its energy pulsate through him. "I'm here to free you," he shouted, hoping against hope that the warlord would understand. The creature paused, tilting its head, and Adler saw a flicker of understanding in its eyes. The other soldiers hesitated, confusion evident in their movements. Adler's fingers danced across the console, pressing the final sequence. The force field shattered with a blinding flash, and the chamber erupted into chaos. Warlords emerged from their cells, their bodies radiating power as they roared in defiance. The soldiers surrounding Adler and Vern faltered, and the massive warlord stepped forward, addressing its newly freed kin. "Brothers, the time has come to reclaim our destiny." Adler watched in awe as the chamber transformed. The warlords began to unleash their power, energy swirling around them, illuminating the darkness of the chamber. Vern turned to Adler, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Did we just hold on," Adler shouted, adrenaline surging through him. They needed to escape, to get out of this place before the alien forces could regroup. With the warlord's energy now crackling in the air, Adler felt a surge of hope. They might just have a fighting chance after all. As the soldiers reeled from the shock of the freed warlords, Adler and Vern slipped out of the chamber, racing down the tunnel. The walls trembled as the warlord's power echoed behind them, the sound of chaos and fury. "Where do we go now?" Vern asked, panting heavily. "Back to the surface," Adler replied, determination fueling his steps. "We need to regroup and figure out how to use this power to our advantage." As they sprinted through the tunnel, the roar of the warlords echoed behind them, a reminder of the ancient strength they had unleashed. Adler could feel the tide turning, the balance of power shifting as humanity joined forces with these formidable beings. But as they neared the exit, Adler couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of their fight. They had unleashed something powerful, and now they needed to harness it to defend their world. Emerging from the depths of the earth, Adler and Vern squinted against the blinding light. They stumbled onto the surface, gasping for air as the reality of their situation settled in. The vibrant hues of the sky felt surreal after the oppressive darkness of the tunnels, but there was no time to admire the beauty. They needed to act fast. Adler glanced around, his mind racing. The encampment lay before them, a hodgepodge of tents, makeshift structures, and scattered equipment. The scientists, along with the soldiers, were gathered, still processing the chaotic events that had just unfolded. As Adler and Vern approached, eyes widened in shock. Adler, Vern, Commander Hale rushed forward, concern etched across his face. "We thought you were lost." "We almost were," Adler panted, catching his breath. "But we found them, the warlords. They're real, and we freed them." "What?" Hale exclaimed, disbelief flickering in his eyes. "You unleashed them? Are you insane?" "Commander, listen," Vern interjected, urgency driving his words. "We didn't have a choice. They were imprisoned down there, and we had to help them. They're powerful, and they can help us fight back." Hale shook his head, grappling with the implications. "And what if they turn against us? We don't know their intentions." "They won't," Adler insisted, a surge of conviction filling him. "They're as much prisoners as we are, trapped by their past. We have to unite with them, harness their strength to face the true enemy." Before Hale could respond, a tremor shook the ground beneath them. The earth rumbled ominously, a reminder of the danger that still loomed. The encampment buzzed with tension, soldiers scrambling to maintain order as uncertainty filled the air. "Get everyone ready," Hale shouted, rallying the troops. "We need to fortify our position." As chaos erupted, Adler felt a surge of determination. He had seen the warlords' power firsthand, and now they needed to establish communication. "We need to find a way to contact them," he said, urgency coloring his tone. "If they're our allies, we need to prove it to them." Vern nodded, his resolve hardening. "I'll gather supplies. We can set up a signal. Maybe we can create something they'll understand." With a plan in motion, Adler set off toward the center of the encampment, where makeshift technology lay scattered. He rifled through components, searching for anything that could amplify their message. He had a nagging feeling that they needed to act quickly before the soldiers from the alien faction regrouped and retaliated. Meanwhile, Vern rushed to gather a few colleagues, a technician named Mitchell and an engineer named Tara. They quickly rallied the team, working together to fashion a makeshift transmitter. "Okay, we need to amplify our signal," Tara explained, her fingers deftly assembling equipment. "If we can project a frequency that resonates with their technology, we might be able to communicate." "What frequency do we need?" Vern asked, urgency lacing his voice. Mitchell, a wiry man with an impressive track record in engineering, stepped forward. "Based on the readings from the Oblivion Key, it seems they operate on a mix of bioelectromagnetic frequencies. We need to modulate ours to match." As they worked furiously, Adler kept glancing over his shoulder, scanning the horizon for any signs of the warlords. The tension in the air was palpable. The soldiers around them had grown restless, whispers of doubt swirling in the ranks. "I hope you know what you're doing, Adler," Hale said, joining him as they watched the preparations. "If this goes south, we could be putting everyone in danger." "We don't have a choice," Adler replied, steeling his resolve. "We need allies. If we can show them we mean no harm, they might fight alongside us. We can't let fear dictate our actions." Hours passed as the team worked tirelessly, assembling the transmitter and calibrating the frequency. The sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the encampment. The tension grew thicker as night approached, the distant rumble of the earth serving as a constant reminder of the impending threat. "Almost done," Tara announced, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Just a few more adjustments." Adler's heart raced with anticipation. He had faith in their plan, but doubts gnawed at him. Would the warlords truly understand their intentions? What if they perceived them as a threat? With a final flourish, Tara stepped back, wiping the sweat from her brow. "It's ready. Let's hope they're listening." Adler nodded, taking a deep breath. "We're ready." He stepped forward, placing his hand on the transmitter. "This is for our survival and theirs." He activated the device, the air humming with energy as the signal pulsed outward. The frequency resonated through the encampment, vibrating with an intensity that felt almost alive. Adler watched as the signal projected into the night sky, shimmering with possibilities. Moments stretched into eternity as they waited, hearts pounding in unison. The ground trembled again, and Adler felt a wave of unease wash over him. "They have to respond," he murmured, hope flickering like a dying flame. Then, from the depths of the forest surrounding the camp, a figure emerged, a massive silhouette against the backdrop of the night. Adler's breath caught in his throat as the warlord materialized, flanked by several others, their forms imposing and regal. "Adler," Vern shouted, drawing everyone's attention. "They're here." The camp fell silent as the warlords stepped into the clearing, their luminous eyes scanning the assembled group. The tension was electric, a palpable mix of fear and anticipation. Adler stepped forward, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "We come in solidarity," he called out, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his chest. "We have freed you, and now we seek your strength to fight against those who would oppress us all." The lead warlord, its body radiating power, stepped closer, its gaze piercing through Adler. "You dare to awaken us from our slumber, human?" "Yes," Adler replied, his heart pounding. "We fight the same enemy. Join us, and together we can reclaim our home." The warlord regarded him for a moment that felt like an eternity. Adler could sense the weight of the creature's judgment, its history and pain echoing in the silence. Then, with a deep growl that resonated through the clearing, the warlord spoke. "We shall see if your words hold truth, human. Show us your resolve. Prove that you are worthy allies." Adler felt a rush of exhilaration. They had taken the first step toward uniting two worlds, but he knew this was just the beginning. They would face trials ahead, testing their commitment and strength. "Together, we will fight," Adler declared, his voice booming through the night. "Let us forge a new destiny." The warlords roared in response, a sound that reverberated through the forest and beyond, a signal of defiance against their common foe. Adler knew they had a chance now, a glimmer of hope shining in the darkness. But deep inside, he also felt the weight of the challenge ahead. With allies at their side, they would need to confront not just the enemies outside, but the doubts within themselves. They were on the brink of something monumental, and he wouldn't allow fear to overshadow their courage. As the night sky filled with stars, Adler took a deep breath, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. Their journey had only just begun. The following days blurred into a whirlwind of activity as the encampment transformed into a strategic hub of collaboration between humans and the warlords. Plans were laid out, defenses fortified, and a sense of unity began to form, a bond forged by necessity, fear, and an overwhelming desire for survival. Adler found himself working closely with the warlords, learning from their experiences, their battles, and the harsh realities of their past. They were a proud and fierce people, shaped by generations of conflict and hardship. Despite the initial tension, a mutual respect grew as they shared knowledge and strategies, recognizing that their combined strength was their best weapon. Adler, one of the warlords, named Zephyr, approached him during a tactical meeting. His voice was deep and resonant, carrying the weight of authority. "Your people have a unique way of warfare. Teach us your strategies. We will share ours." Adler nodded, heartened by the trust building between them. "We can learn from each other. Your strength is unmatched, but our tactics can level the battlefield. Together, we can create a strategy that combines both our strengths." Days turned into weeks as the preparations intensified. The soldiers and warlords trained side by side, adapting to each other's methods. Vern and Tara worked tirelessly on fortifying their technology, improving communication systems to ensure a seamless flow of information between the two factions. But as the training progressed, the specter of the true enemy loomed large. Reports began to filter in about increased activity among the alien forces, their movements becoming bolder and more aggressive. Adler knew time was running out. "We need to strike first," Adler proposed during one of their war council meetings, his voice steady and commanding. "We have the element of surprise on our side. If we can disrupt their operations now, we might weaken them before they can mount a full-scale attack." The warlords nodded in agreement, their eyes glinting with anticipation. Zephyr leaned forward, his expression fierce. "We will not be mere tools in their game. We will reclaim our honor on the battlefield." Plans were quickly formulated, targeting key alien supply routes and command centers. The atmosphere buzzed with a mix of excitement and trepidation. The humans and warlords had grown closer, and the bonds they formed ignited a shared purpose. As the day of their first coordinated strike approached, Adler stood at the edge of the encampment, staring into the distance. The vast landscape stretched before him, a reminder of everything they were fighting for. Memories of the alien prison and the horrors the warlords had endured flooded his mind. They had a chance to change the narrative, to reclaim their power and dignity. "Are you ready for this?" Vern's voice broke through his thoughts, a hint of anxiety underlying his words. Adler turned to face him, determination etched on his face. "We don't have a choice. This is our moment. We need to show them we're not just survivors, we're warriors." That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a fiery glow across the sky, the camp was alive with preparation. Soldiers donned their gear, warlords sharpened their weapons, and the air crackled with a sense of purpose. Adler addressed the gathered forces, his voice rising above the murmurs. "Today, we fight not just for ourselves, but for our shared future. We are united against a common enemy, and together, we will forge a new path. Our strength lies in our unity, and we will show them the power of our combined forces." Cheers erupted from the crowd, a chorus of resolve echoing through the encampment. The warlords joined in, their voices deep and thunderous, filling the air with a primal energy. As night fell, the group prepared to move out, stealthily advancing toward their target. The darkened landscape felt alive with anticipation, each rustle of leaves and distant howl reminding them of the stakes at hand. The first skirmish was fierce. They ambushed a supply convoy, an intricate dance of tactics and brute force. Adler fought alongside Zephyr, the warlord's prowess in combat awe-inspiring. Together, they moved like shadows, striking with precision, dismantling the alien forces with every blow. But amidst the chaos, they faced unexpected resistance. The aliens were better organized than anticipated, and their numbers seemed to swell as reinforcements arrived. Adler felt a rush of adrenaline as they pushed forward, the battle raging around them. "Stay focused," Zephyr shouted, rallying their troops. "We fight for our freedom." With renewed vigor, they pressed on, flanking the enemy and using the terrain to their advantage. The strategy they had crafted together began to bear fruit, the synergy of their combat styles creating a formidable force. But as they advanced, a sudden explosion rocked the ground beneath them. Adler was thrown to the side, landing hard against the earth as chaos erupted around him. Groaning, he pushed himself up, scanning the battlefield for Vern. "Vern," he shouted, his voice nearly drowned out by the cacophony of battle. Panic surged through him as he searched for his friend amidst the chaos. "Adler," Vern's voice cut through the noise, and Adler spotted him across the field, engaging in combat with an alien soldier. Adler's heart raced as he moved to assist, dodging debris and enemy fire. "Get down," Adler shouted as he lunged toward Vern, knocking him aside just as an energy blast whizzed past, narrowly missing them both. "We need to regroup." "Right," Vern nodded, adrenaline coursing through him. They fought their way back to where Zephyr had gathered their forces, the warlords standing resolute against the advancing enemy. "We need to fall back," Zephyr commanded, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Regroup and regroup. We'll strike again when we're ready." As they pulled back, Adler felt a mixture of triumph and dread. They had made their mark, but the battle was far from over. They needed to adapt, to innovate, to surprise their enemy once more. Under the cover of darkness, they returned to the encampment, battered but not broken. The air was thick with tension, the aftermath of the battle leaving an indelible mark on their spirits. Adler gathered the leaders in a tent, the flickering light casting shadows on their determined faces. "We've seen their strength, but we've also proven ours. We can't let this defeat define us." The warlords nodded, their expressions fierce. Zephyr spoke first. "We will not falter. We will learn from this, adapt our tactics, and strike again." Adler felt a surge of hope. "Exactly. We regroup, strategize, and when the time is right, we unleash our full power. This is just the beginning." As the meeting concluded, Adler stepped outside, the cool night air refreshing against his skin. The stars twinkled above, a reminder of the vast universe they were fighting to reclaim. They were not just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for their freedom, their identity, and their future. In that moment, as he looked up at the cosmos, Adler felt a newfound sense of purpose. They would rise from the ashes, stronger and more united than ever. Together, they would confront the darkness, and together, they would emerge victorious. The aftermath of our victory over Khazar and the Xylarites felt surreal. We had saved Earth from imminent destruction, but the scars of battle still marred our planet. As I gazed out over the horizon from our base in the Appalachian Mountains, a sense of foreboding lingered in the air. The echoes of war had left their mark, and our fragile peace was a thin veneer over the chaos that threatened to resurface. In the months following our triumph, we had worked tirelessly to fortify our defenses, gathering resources and intelligence on the remnants of Khazar's forces. Vern and Jarek were instrumental in this effort, each day dedicated to deciphering alien technology and strategizing our next moves. Yet, for every plan we devised, there seemed to be a new threat lurking just out of sight. "Do you really think Khazar is gone for good?" Jarek asked one afternoon, his brow furrowed as we pored over maps and reports. "I can't shake the feeling that he's still out there, waiting for his moment. Until we locate the catalyst and neutralize it, we can't be certain," Vern replied, adjusting his glasses as he studied the data projected on the screen. "But I suspect Khazar is biding his time. He knows that any premature move could lead to his downfall." I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed. "We need to uncover his plans. If there's even a sliver of hope that he's regrouping, we have to find it before he can strike again." As the sun dipped below the mountains, casting an orange glow across the room, a low rumble resonated beneath our feet. Instinctively, we exchanged worried glances, the tremor reminiscent of the seismic events that had previously unleashed chaos upon us. "What was that?" I asked, rising to my feet. Vern accessed the monitoring systems. "There's been an increase in geothermal activity in the vicinity of the old mining facilities. I'm running a diagnostic now." Just as he spoke, alarms blared, and a warning signal flashed on the main console. "An unidentified energy surge is detected beneath the Earth's surface," Vern announced, his voice tense. "It's massive. We need to investigate." Without a moment's hesitation, we gathered our gear and set out toward the mining facility. The narrow passageways were cloaked in darkness, illuminated only by the flickering lights of our handheld devices. As we descended into the depths of the Earth, the air grew thick with dust, and the walls seemed to close in around us. The humming energy resonated through the tunnels, guiding us deeper. "We're getting closer," Jarek said, his voice echoing off the rock. "But what could cause this level of disturbance?" We reached a large cavern, and what we found inside left us speechless. Ancient machinery, remnants of the alien prison, hummed with newfound life. A pulsating core of brilliant energy thrummed at its center, drawing us closer. "That's the catalyst," Vern exclaimed, his eyes wide with realization. "Khazar must have activated it to amplify his powers." Before we could react, a shadow moved at the edge of the cavern, a silhouette emerging from the darkness. My heart raced as I recognized the figure. Khazar stood before us, his face twisted in a triumphant grin. "You fell right into my trap," he declared, voice echoing in the vast space. "You thought you could eliminate me? No, I was merely waiting for the right moment to reclaim my power." Rage coursed through me, fueling my resolve. We defeated you once, Khazar. We can do it again. He chuckled, an unsettling sound that sent chills down my spine. You have no idea of the power at my fingertips now. With the catalyst restored, I can unleash the full might of the Xylarites once more. I clenched my fists, ready to fight, but he raised a hand, and the energy surged around us, crackling in the air. But why fight when I can offer you a choice, he sneered. Join me, and together we can rule this world. Reject me, and witness the devastation I can unleash. The offer hung in the air, a tantalizing temptation laced with danger. I could see the uncertainty flickering in Jarek's eyes, and I knew we couldn't let Khazar manipulate us again. Never, I growled. We won't be your pawns. Khazar's expression darkened. So be it. You've sealed your fate. With a wave of his hand, the energy surged violently, sending shockwaves through the cavern. We braced ourselves as the ground trembled beneath our feet, the machines whirring to life in response to Khazar's commands. Let the games begin, he shouted, and with that, chaos erupted around us. I exchanged a quick glance with Vern and Jarek, determination igniting within us. We would not back down. The battle for Earth had just begun, and this time we would be ready. The shockwaves reverberated through the cavern, disorienting us as debris rained down from the ceiling. The humming machinery pulsed with energy, transforming the once still chamber into a chaotic battlefield. Khazar's laughter echoed ominously, a cruel reminder of the power he wielded. Get to cover, I shouted, pushing Jarek and Vern behind a large stone outcropping. The ground beneath us shook violently as energy surged from the core, illuminating the darkness in erratic flashes. Can we shut it down? Jarek yelled over the noise, eyes darting to the pulsating machine at the center of the cavern. I don't know, I shouted back, trying to keep my focus amid the chaos. But we need to buy time. Khazar is too powerful in here. We have to find a way to disrupt his control over the catalyst. Vern, crouched beside me, furrowed his brow in thought. If we can find the source of the energy flow, we might be able to reverse it. But we'll need to act fast before he can fully harness its power. Just then, a wave of energy exploded from the core, sending us sprawling against the cavern walls. Pain shot through my side as I pushed myself back to my feet, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I looked around, spotting Khazar, his form shimmering with the energy he had summoned. I'll crush you, he roared, flinging bolts of energy toward us. We ducked and dodged, narrowly avoiding the blasts that left scorched marks on the stone. We can't hold him off forever, I said, my voice strained. We need to split up. Jarek, you and Vern find the source of that energy. I'll keep Khazar distracted. No way, Jarek protested, eyes wide with fear. We're not leaving you alone. Trust me, I insisted, locking eyes with both of them. I'll draw his attention. Just find a way to stop that thing. They hesitated but nodded, understanding the urgency of the situation. I sprinted toward Khazar, determined to keep him occupied. Hey, Khazar, I shouted, drawing his gaze. You want to fight? Come and get it. His eyes flared with rage, and he shot a bolt of energy in my direction. I dove to the side, narrowly avoiding the blast that exploded against the cavern wall, sending shards of rock flying. I rolled back to my feet and taunted him again. Is that all you've got? I expected more from the self-proclaimed conqueror of Earth. Khazar's fury surged, and he charged at me, energy crackling around him like a tempest. I had to think fast. My eyes darted to the machinery behind him. If I could lure him close enough, I might be able to use it against him. As he lunged, I feigned retreat, leading him toward the central core. The energy surged higher, and I could feel its power calling to me. I had to resist the urge to tap into it. This was Khazar's domain, and I needed to turn his strength against him. Coward, he yelled, his voice dripping with contempt as he chased me. You think you can outrun me? Not outrun, I panted, adrenaline pumping. Outsmart. I led him within striking distance of the core, and then abruptly turned, using every ounce of my strength to shove him toward the pulsating energy. Khazar stumbled, caught off guard by my sudden change in direction. Just then, Vern's voice crackled through my comm link. "We've found the source. There are conduits connected to the core that we can overload." "Do it," I yelled back, keeping my eyes on Kazar, who was regaining his balance and glaring at me with fury. With a guttural roar, he unleashed another wave of energy, but this time I was ready. I dove to the side as the blast surged past me, striking the machinery and causing it to spark and sputter. The cavern filled with a chaotic symphony of screeching metal and hissing energy. "Keep him distracted," Vern shouted. "We're almost there." I darted around the cavern, leading Kazar on a wild chase, narrowly avoiding his powerful blasts. Each time he attacked, I managed to redirect him away from Vern and Jarek, who were racing against time to disable the conduits. "Is this all you've got?" I shouted, taunting him as I ducked behind a column, narrowly avoiding a bolt that left a smoldering mark on the stone. I expected more from an alien warlord. Kazar seethed, his frustration palpable. "You'll pay for your insolence." Yeah. Save the threats for someone who cares," I retorted, my heart racing as I led him deeper into the cavern, weaving between the ancient machinery. In the distance, I caught a glimpse of Vern and Jarek, frantically working on the conduits. Sparks flew as they raced against Kazar's onslaught. Time was running out. "Almost there," Vern called out, his voice strained but resolute. Just as Kazar prepared to unleash another devastating attack, I spotted an opportunity. I sprinted toward the machinery, calling out to my friends. "Now, do it now." As Kazar turned to follow, Vern and Jarek activated the overload sequence. The entire cavern trembled as the conduits began to glow ominously, energy spiraling out of control. "No," Kazar screamed, realizing too late what was happening. "You will not." The energy surged, and in an instant, the cavern erupted in a blinding explosion of light and sound. I shielded my eyes, the force knocking me off my feet and sending me crashing against the stone wall. As the dust settled and silence fell, I slowly pushed myself up, my heart pounding in my chest. The cavern was transformed. The core flickered weakly, its power diminished. I looked around, searching for Vern and Jarek. They appeared from the cloud of dust, battered but unbroken. "Did it work?" I asked, hope surging within me. Vern nodded, his face grim. "We weakened it. But Kazar?" We turned to find Kazar struggling to rise, his power waning. His eyes glinted with anger and desperation. "This is not over," he spat, his voice hoarse but filled with venom. "You may have won this battle, but I will return. The Xylarites will rise again." With that, Kazar retreated into the shadows, his form disappearing as the echoes of his threats faded. "We need to regroup," Jarek said, breathless. "He'll be back, and we have to prepare." I nodded, a mix of relief and determination flooding my senses. "Then we'll find a way to stop him once and for all." With newfound resolve, we made our way out of the cavern, knowing that the fight was far from over. Kazar's threats loomed large in our minds, but we had each other, and that was enough. The battle had just begun. As we emerged from the cavern, the outside world greeted us with a stark contrast to the chaos we had just left behind. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the barren landscape. It felt surreal, as if the earth itself had been holding its breath during our confrontation with Kazar. We stumbled back to our base camp, fatigue washing over us. Our hearts were still racing, the adrenaline fading into a sense of urgency. The others were already gathered around, their faces etched with concern as we relayed our harrowing experience. "Is Kazar really gone?" one of the scientists asked, his eyes wide. "What about the core?" "We weakened it," I replied, exchanging glances with Vern and Jarek. "But Kazar won't stay down for long. He'll come back, and next time, he'll be prepared." "The Xylarites are not to be underestimated," Vern added, his brow furrowed. "We need to understand their technology and tactics if we want to stand a chance." "Agreed," Jarek said, already pacing. "We should analyze the data from our expedition. There must be clues about how Khazar controls the core and how we can counter him. As we gathered around the monitors and holographic displays, the weight of our situation settled over us. The core had been an ancient prison, but now it seemed it had become a beacon, drawing Khazar and his kind toward Earth. "What about the energy readings?" I asked, pointing at the fluctuating graphs on the screen. "Can we track Khazar's movements through this?" Vern nodded. "If we can triangulate the energy signatures, we might anticipate where he'll strike next. We need to set up monitoring stations across the region to gather real-time data." Hours passed as we strategized, the tension palpable in the air. Each plan we proposed seemed to hit a wall of uncertainty. Khazar was cunning, and we could not afford to be careless. Just as I was beginning to lose hope, a commotion at the entrance drew our attention. A team of researchers burst in, their faces ashen. "We need to talk. You won't believe what we found." "What is it?" I asked, moving closer. "We detected a massive energy spike coming from the east," one of them said, his voice trembling with excitement. "It's unlike anything we've seen before. It could be Khazar's forces gathering." "What do you mean? Can you confirm it's them?" Jarek asked, his tone urgent. "We can't say for sure," the researcher replied, "but the readings match what we saw at the core. We believe he's establishing a base." "Then we don't have much time," I said, adrenaline surging through me again. "We need to mobilize our team and investigate. If Khazar is amassing power, we must disrupt it before he can strike." As the team rallied, I felt the weight of leadership settle on my shoulders. We were outnumbered, and Khazar had the advantage of preparation. But we had something he did not: determination and the knowledge we had gained from our previous encounter. We loaded equipment and weapons, the atmosphere charged with purpose. The vehicles hummed to life, and as we set out toward the east, the landscape shifted from barren earth to a rocky terrain dotted with vegetation. The sun dipped lower, casting an orange glow across the horizon. The drive felt surreal, each bump in the road echoing the uncertainty we faced. I couldn't shake the feeling that Khazar was watching us, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "Keep your eyes peeled," I instructed as we approached the suspected area. "Stay alert for any signs of activity." As we neared our destination, a sense of foreboding hung in the air. The readings on our instruments began to fluctuate wildly, the energy levels spiking erratically. "There," Jarek shouted, pointing toward a cluster of jagged rocks. "Look at that. There's a faint glow coming from behind them." We moved cautiously, our breaths held in anticipation. The glow intensified as we neared, illuminating the ground in an eerie light. "What is that?" Vern muttered, squinting into the light. "It looks like a portal." I stepped closer, my heart racing as I took in the sight before us. The portal shimmered with a kaleidoscope of colors, swirling like liquid metal. "This must be how Khazar is transporting his forces. If we can close it?" A deafening roar erupted from the portal, cutting me off. Khazar's form emerged, flanked by a legion of Xylarite warriors, their eyes blazing with fury. "We found you," Khazar bellowed, his voice echoing against the rocks. "You dared to challenge me, and now you will pay the price." "Everyone, get ready," I shouted, adrenaline coursing through me as I drew my weapon. The air crackled with tension, the portal pulsating ominously behind Khazar and his warriors. They charged, a wave of shimmering armor and energy weapons aimed directly at us. "Stand your ground," I yelled, trying to maintain control amid the chaos. "We can't let them breach our defenses." As they advanced, we fired back, energy blasts illuminating the dimming twilight. Each shot felt like a desperate plea for survival, a reminder of the stakes we faced. "Watch the portal," Vern warned. "If they get through, we'll be overwhelmed." With every moment, Khazar pushed forward, his warriors pressing against us in relentless waves. We fought fiercely, determination fueling our actions. I could see the glint of fear in my team's eyes, but I knew we had to hold the line. "Khazar, this ends now," I shouted, locking eyes with the alien warlord as he surged toward me, his energy blade crackling dangerously. You won't conquer Earth. He smirked, an unsettling gleam in his eyes. You have no idea what you're up against. This is only the beginning. And with that, the battle for our survival erupted into chaos, each second feeling like an eternity as we fought against the darkness closing in around us. The outcome was uncertain, but one thing was clear. We had to fight, for the fate of Earth depended on it. The battlefield morphed into a frantic whirlwind of chaos and desperation. Energy blasts crisscrossed the air, each explosion a vivid reminder of what we stood to lose. I kept my focus on Khazar, the leader of this malevolent force, his arrogance palpable even amid the chaos. "Hold your positions," I shouted over the din, trying to rally my team. Vern, Jerk, and I formed a tight circle, weapons raised, ready to counter any oncoming threat. Khazar and his warriors advanced relentlessly, their alien battle cries a chilling reminder of their intent. They seemed to swarm toward us like a tide, their shimmering armor reflecting the faint glow of the portal. "Use the terrain," Jerk yelled, ducking behind a rock outcropping. "We need to split their numbers." Nodding, I grabbed a small explosive device from my belt. "Vern, cover me. I'm going to try to flank them." I dashed toward the side, keeping low to the ground. The rocky terrain provided ample cover, but I could still hear the roars of the Xylarites echoing through the air. As I moved, I spotted several of the alien warriors gathering near the portal, seemingly attempting to strengthen its energy. It pulsated violently, the colors shifting with an otherworldly glow. If Khazar succeeded in drawing more of his kind through, we'd be overwhelmed. With a quick glance back to my team, I hurled the explosive into the group of advancing warriors. The device detonated with a blinding flash, scattering them like leaves in a storm. "Now's our chance," I shouted, feeling a surge of hope. But Khazar's piercing gaze met mine from across the chaos, and he charged forward, cutting through the remaining warriors with an ease that sent shivers down my spine. "Foolish human," he roared, his voice cutting through the sound of battle. "You think you can defy me?" I aimed my weapon, trying to suppress the growing dread within me. "You'll never conquer this world, Khazar." Just as I prepared to pull the trigger, he lunged, and in a blink, the world around me transformed into a frantic blur. His energy blade clashed against mine, the impact reverberating through my arm. The fight was brutal, each movement a test of skill and resilience. I could see Jerk and Vern holding their ground, but I was completely focused on Khazar. Each strike I exchanged with him felt like a dance of death, both of us searching for an opening, a weakness. "Your power is nothing without your army," I shouted, feigning a retreat. Khazar took the bait, pressing forward. I dodged to the side, thrusting my weapon in a low arc, catching his leg. He snarled, the distraction momentarily halting his momentum. "Get back," I yelled to my team, who were still engaged with the remaining Xylarite warriors. "I'll hold him off." With every ounce of strength, I pushed back against Khazar, blocking his advances while keeping an eye on the battlefield. Jerk and Vern were still engaged, but their positions were beginning to falter under the relentless assault. Suddenly, Khazar unleashed a pulse of energy from his blade, catching me off guard. The force sent me tumbling backward, pain exploding through my side. I landed hard against the rocky ground, gasping for breath. "Khazar," I spat, struggling to rise. "This is your end." But as I looked up, I realized I wasn't alone. Vern and Jerk fought fiercely beside me, determination etched into their expressions. "Together," Jerk shouted, and the three of us rallied, forming a united front against Khazar. With renewed vigor, we pushed forward, alternating our attacks to keep him off balance. It was a risky strategy, but one that was paying off. We had to capitalize on Khazar's growing frustration. As the tide of the battle shifted, I could feel the energy from the portal spiking again. "We need to destroy that portal," I yelled. "It's his lifeline." "We're not equipped for that," Vern replied, dodging a swipe from Khazar's energy blade. "What do you suggest?" I scanned the battlefield, my mind racing. "If we can funnel our energy blast together, we might be able to destabilize it." With a nod, they both understood the plan. We needed to work in perfect harmony, channeling our firepower toward that swirling mass of energy. "On my mark," I shouted, gathering my strength. 1, 2, 3. We unleashed a combined wave of energy, the colors intertwining as they surged toward the portal. The impact was explosive, sending shockwaves through the ground. The portal flickered, the colors dimming, but it didn't collapse. Khazar roared in anger, his attention diverted from us to the portal. "No," he bellowed, his eyes wide with fury. "You will not destroy my means of conquest." Taking advantage of his distraction, we pressed forward again. "Now," I shouted, lunging at Khazar while Vern and Jerk targeted the portal. Khazar recovered quickly, though, his rage fueling his power. He struck out, and I barely dodged his attack. The energy blade grazed my side, searing pain flaring through me. "Focus on the portal," I yelled to Vern and Jerk, my breath coming in quick gasps. "We can't let him regroup." Vern fired at the portal while Jerk flanked Khazar, diverting his attention. The distraction was effective, but Khazar wasn't finished yet. He turned, eyes blazing with fury as he engaged Jerk. I scrambled to my feet, determination pushing through the pain. "Jerk, watch out!" But before I could reach him, Khazar unleashed another devastating wave of energy, knocking Jerk back and momentarily incapacitating him. "No!" I roared, charging forward, adrenaline surging through my veins. I had to finish this. I had to protect my team. In that moment, I felt the weight of the battle pressing down on me. Khazar was stronger than I had anticipated, but I wasn't about to give up. The battle raged around us, the air thick with tension and energy. I felt a growing resolve within me, igniting my determination. We had come too far to back down now. "Together," I shouted, rallying Vern and Jerk. "We can take him down." With one last surge of energy, we launched our combined attack at Khazar, our hope igniting into a blazing force that propelled us forward. Khazar staggered, his own power waning under the combined might of our resolve. The energy from the portal flickered again, and I knew this was our moment. "Now," I yelled, directing our fire toward the portal. "We can end this." Our energy collided with the portal, and the resulting explosion resonated through the air, a blinding flash of light engulfing us. For a moment, I could see nothing but white, the world around me fading into chaos. But as the light dimmed, I realized we had succeeded. The portal collapsed in on itself, the colors fading into nothingness. Khazar roared in anger, but the sound diminished as he found himself cut off from his reinforcements. As the dust settled, I staggered back, my heart racing. Khazar was still standing, but his power was diminished. He turned to face us, and I could see the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "This isn't over, human," he spat, but the edge of desperation was evident in his voice. "Yes, it is," I replied, raising my weapon once more. "You will not threaten Earth any longer." With one final shot, I unleashed the energy blast, striking Khazar squarely in the chest. He staggered backward, the force sending him crashing to the ground. "Now, let this be a lesson," I said, my breath coming in ragged gasps. "Never underestimate humanity." As Khazar lay defeated, I turned to Vern and Jerk, relief flooding through me. "We did it," I breathed, barely able to process what had just transpired. But even as I spoke, a faint tremor rippled through the ground beneath us. My heart sank as I glanced at the remaining warriors. "We're not out of the woods yet." "We need to regroup and assess our situation," Vern urged, his expression serious. "Khazar might be down, but there's still a threat." We moved cautiously, gathering what we could from the wreckage of the battle. I felt a sense of determination rising within me. This fight wasn't just about survival, it was about the future of our planet. "Let's get back to base and analyze what we've learned," I said. "We need to prepare for whatever comes next." As we made our way back, I felt a growing sense of unity among us. We had faced insurmountable odds and emerged stronger. But deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. Khazar may have been defeated, but the galaxy was vast, and the threats it held were far from over. We had won this battle, but the war for Earth's survival was still ahead. The atmosphere within our base was tense. The sounds of distant alarms and hurried footsteps echoed in the command center as we processed the aftermath of our encounter with Khazar. The victory felt hollow, overshadowed by the uncertainty of what lay ahead. I stood before a holographic display, reviewing the data from our recent battle. Vern and Jerk were nearby, their expressions a mix of exhaustion and determination. "What we face today is just a fraction of what they can throw at us," Vern said, running a hand through his hair. "We need to prepare for the next wave. Khazar may be defeated, but his forces will regroup and retaliate." Jerk nodded in agreement. "We should increase our defenses around the base. We can't afford to be caught off guard again." I couldn't shake the feeling that we were racing against time. "We need to understand their motives. Why did Khazar come here? What does the portal lead to?" The holographic display flickered as I accessed more data. According to what we've gathered, the portal was a direct link to their home world. Khazar was attempting to bring an army through to conquer Earth. "Then we need to find a way to cut off that link permanently," Vern stated, his voice steady. "If we can locate the source of the portal's energy, we might be able to neutralize it for good." "Agreed," I replied, feeling the weight of leadership settle upon me. "We can't let this happen again. If we can dismantle their connection to Earth, it might buy us the time we need to prepare for whatever they send next." The tension in the room thickened as we strategized, but I could see the resolve hardening in my teammates. Together, we were determined to face whatever came our way. Hours turned into days as we gathered intelligence and fortified our defenses. The team worked tirelessly, developing new technologies and enhancing our weaponry to combat the alien threat. Finally, the day arrived when we had enough information to locate the source of the portal's energy. It was a remote location deep within the Earth's crust, where the remnants of an ancient alien technology lay dormant. "We're ready," I said, looking at Vern and Jerk. "It's time to end this." With our gear packed and weapons primed, we set out for the coordinates displayed on the map. The journey was fraught with tension, but we knew what was at stake. The fate of our planet depended on this mission. As we descended into the Earth, the surroundings grew darker, the air thicker. The path was treacherous, but we pressed on, fueled by the desire to protect our home. After what felt like an eternity, we arrived at a cavern illuminated by a strange, pulsing light. The energy source radiated with power, pulsating in sync with the vibrations of the Earth itself. "There it is," Jerk whispered, awe mingling with fear in his voice. "That's the core of the portal's energy." As we approached, the walls around us glimmered with ancient symbols, remnants of a long-forgotten civilization. "We need to disable it," I instructed, my voice steady despite the looming danger. "Vern, set up the explosives. Jerk, keep watch for any incoming threats." While Vern worked quickly, I couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. The air crackled with tension, and I could sense the faint echoes of the Xylarites' presence nearby. "Stay alert," I warned, my heart pounding in my chest. "They might come looking for us." Just as Vern secured the last explosive, the ground trembled violently, and a rift in the cavern wall opened up. From the darkness emerged a group of Xylarite warriors, their eyes filled with rage and vengeance. "Foolish humans," Khazar's voice echoed through the chamber, resonating with fury. "You think you can defy me?" I braced myself, weapon drawn, as we prepared for the imminent battle. "We'll end this here, Khazar!" With a deafening roar, the Xylarites charged forward, and I felt adrenaline surge through me. This was our moment, a chance to protect our home and finish what we started. The cavern erupted into chaos. The dimly lit chamber became a battlefield as the Xylarite warriors surged forward, their alien features twisted with rage. I fired my weapon, a burst of energy lighting up the darkness as it struck the nearest warrior. He staggered back, but his comrades pushed onward, relentless and ferocious. "Vern, Jerk, stay close," I shouted, my voice barely cutting through the din of battle. My heart raced as I fought to maintain my composure, knowing that the fate of Earth hung in the balance. Vern quickly set up the final explosives while firing at the advancing aliens. "I'm almost done," he yelled, glancing back at me with determination. "Just hold them off a little longer." Jerk, ever the strategist, took position near the cavern's entrance, firing at the encroaching aliens with precise shots. "They're coming from all sides. We need to find cover." As the Xylarites closed in, I scanned the chamber for any strategic advantage. The ancient symbols on the walls glimmered in the chaos, drawing my attention. There was something about them, a pattern that seemed to pulse with energy, perhaps connected to the portal. "Jerk," I called, my mind racing. "Cover me, I need to get to those symbols." Without hesitation, Jerk shifted his focus, laying down cover fire as I sprinted towards the wall. My mind raced with possibilities. If these symbols were tied to the portal's energy, maybe they could help us turn the tide. As I reached the wall, I ran my fingers over the symbols, feeling the vibrations thrumming beneath my skin. They were not just decorations, they seemed to hold power, a connection to something much larger than I could comprehend. "Get away from there," Kazar's voice boomed, echoing through the chamber. He was closing in, fury etched across his alien features. "Vern, Jerk, we need to activate the portal," I shouted, hoping against hope that I could channel its energy against our enemies. Suddenly, a surge of energy pulsed from the symbols, enveloping me in a bright light. My surroundings blurred as I felt a connection with the ancient technology. A realization struck me. This was a key, a way to turn their power against them. "Focus on the energy," I yelled, my voice barely audible over the chaos. "We can harness it to repel them." Vern glanced at me, determination shining in his eyes. "Let's do it, Jerk, cover him." As the energy intensified, I began to decipher the symbols, each one revealing a fragment of knowledge about the ancient alien technology. I could feel the power flowing through me, guiding my actions. The Xylarites roared in anger as they charged, but a barrier of energy erupted from the symbols, pushing them back. "It's working," I exclaimed, my heart racing with adrenaline. "Keep it steady," Vern shouted, as he fired into the chaos, fending off the remaining warriors. Kazar, however, was relentless. He broke through the barrier, fury blazing in his eyes. "You will not take this from me." I gritted my teeth, focusing on the energy coursing through me. With every ounce of strength, I directed the energy at Kazar, a powerful beam erupting from the symbols and striking him squarely. He staggered back, disbelief crossing his face. "No, this cannot be." "Together," I shouted, as Vern and Jerk joined me, their energies merging with mine. The barrier expanded, engulfing Kazar and pushing him back further, toward the portal. The other Xylarites hesitated, confusion flickering across their features. Sensing their uncertainty, I pressed on. "Now's our chance. Push them back." As we focused our energies, the remaining warriors faltered, their ranks breaking apart as they retreated. Kazar struggled against the power that bound him, his rage transforming into desperation. "Your victory is hollow," he roared. "I will return. My people will avenge me." With one final surge of energy, we pushed him through the rift that had opened behind him, sealing it with a blast that echoed through the cavern. The ancient symbols shimmered, their light fading as the portal closed, leaving us in stunned silence. The immediate danger had passed, but the realization of what we had done hung heavy in the air. We had pushed back an ancient evil, but the threat was far from over. Panting and exhausted, I turned to Vern and Jerk. "We did it, but we need to remain vigilant. They will come back, and next time, they might not be alone." Vern nodded, his eyes scanning the chamber. "We need to study this technology. It's our best chance of being ready for what's to come." Jerk sighed, relief and determination mixing on his face. "And we need to rally more allies. We can't fight this alone." As we began to collect ourselves and assess the damage, I felt a sense of camaraderie blossom among us. We had faced the unknown and emerged victorious, but I understood that the real battle was only beginning. "Let's get to work," I said, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. We have a lot to do. Days turned into weeks as we worked tirelessly within the ancient cavern. The thrill of our victory over Khazar and the Xylarites had worn off, replaced by a persistent urgency. We had barely scratched the surface of understanding the alien technology, and the knowledge that more threats could emerge kept us on edge. Vern had taken the lead in deciphering the ancient symbols, using every tool at our disposal to unlock their secrets. The cave had become a makeshift laboratory, filled with holographic displays and analysis equipment we salvaged from our previous encounters. "Look at this," Vern said, excitement coloring his voice as he pointed to a holographic display. The symbols glowed brightly, their meanings slowly revealing themselves. "These aren't just instructions for the portal. They're a map, a blueprint for a network of ancient structures scattered across the galaxy." I leaned closer, my heart racing. "Are you saying there are more of these places? More portals?" "Exactly. If we can find them, we could gain access to ancient knowledge, maybe even allies. But it also means there are more like Khazar out there, trying to reclaim this technology for themselves." Jarek, who had been studying the maps intently, added, "If we can locate these structures first, we can fortify our position and gather resources. We need to plan our next move carefully." "Agreed," I replied, feeling the weight of leadership settle back on my shoulders. "We can't let fear dictate our actions, but we need to be strategic. We should split up to gather intel while we work on our defenses here. Each of us should take a sector of the map and explore." As we finalized our plans, an unexpected tremor shook the ground beneath us, sending a wave of panic through the cavern. Dust and debris fell from the ceiling as we quickly steadied ourselves. "What was that?" Jarek shouted over the rumble. "An aftershock?" Vern suggested, but I could see the worry etched on his face. "No," I said, suddenly aware of the growing intensity in the air. "This feels different, like something is emerging." Without warning, a blinding light erupted from the portal we had sealed, and a familiar figure stepped through Khazar, but he was not alone. Behind him loomed an army of Xylarite warriors, each one armed and ready for battle. "You underestimated me, humans," Khazar bellowed, his voice echoing through the chamber. "This time, you will fall." Panic surged through me. We were outnumbered, the cavern still filled with the remnants of our previous victory. "Get back to the exit. We need to regroup," I shouted, firing my weapon at the advancing warriors. The energy blasts illuminated the chaos, but it was clear we couldn't hold them back for long. "Vern, activate the symbols," I urged, desperate for any edge we could gain. "We need to harness the energy again." As Vern scrambled back to the wall, Jarek and I formed a defensive line, fending off the Xylarite warriors. "We have to buy him time," Jarek yelled, his shots echoing in the chaos. With adrenaline coursing through me, I focused on the incoming wave of Xylarites, pushing myself beyond my limits. I could feel the energy building within me as I recalled the connection I had established with the symbols. "Now, Vern," I shouted, hoping he had deciphered enough to activate the symbols. With a surge of energy, the symbols illuminated the chamber, casting an ethereal glow. "It's working," Vern shouted, the power resonating through the air. The Xylarites halted, confusion spreading across their ranks. But Khazar pressed forward, unfazed by the energy. "You think your tricks will save you? We have come prepared." Suddenly, he gestured, and the Xylarites began to regroup, forming a tight formation. They unleashed a volley of energy blasts, and we were forced to take cover. "Hold them off," I yelled, barely dodging a blast that singed the wall behind me. "We can't let them reach Vern." The battle raged on, energy blasts lighting up the cavern as we fought tooth and nail. I could see Vern working feverishly, his hands moving over the symbols in a desperate attempt to unlock their power. "Almost there," he shouted, beads of sweat forming on his forehead. With a surge of determination, I dove forward, creating a barrier of energy that protected us from incoming fire. "Keep going, I've got your back." The Xylarites were relentless, but our teamwork began to show results. Each blast I deflected with the energy barrier seemed to strengthen the connection with the symbols. I felt the power surging, ready to burst forth at any moment. "Now!" Vern shouted, slamming his hands on the symbols. A massive wave of energy erupted, engulfing the chamber and striking the Xylarites. They staggered back, the energy pushing them further away. "Push them back!" Jarek yelled, his voice filled with renewed hope. With a united front, we unleashed everything we had. Energy beams shot forth, colliding with the Xylarite warriors and sending them reeling. Khazar, however, stood firm, a dark look of determination etched on his face. "You cannot defeat me. I will destroy you," he roared, launching himself forward. But the power of the ancient technology surged through us, the symbols resonating with our determination. "Together," I shouted, as we directed the energy towards Khazar. The combined force of our will surged forward, striking Khazar directly. He roared in fury as the energy enveloped him, pushing him back towards the portal. "This is not the end," he screamed, his form flickering with energy before he was propelled through the portal, sealing it behind him. As the echoes of the battle faded, we stood in stunned silence. The cavern was alive with energy, the symbols glowing brightly, as if acknowledging our victory. Did we win?" Vern asked, breathless and wide-eyed. I nodded slowly, the reality of what we had accomplished washing over me. "For now, yes. But we need to prepare. Khazar will return, and next time he will come with more than just a handful of warriors." Jarek clapped me on the back, a grin breaking through the tension. "Then let's get to work. We have a galaxy to explore and prepare." As we began to gather our supplies and strategize, I felt a surge of hope. Together, we had faced unimaginable odds and emerged stronger. The knowledge we had uncovered was only the beginning, and with it came the promise of a brighter future. Our journey was far from over, but now we had the tools and the unity to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Weeks passed as we fortified our position within the ancient cavern. The glowing symbols pulsated with energy, casting a serene yet powerful light in the underground space. Each day was a blend of preparation and exploration as we uncovered more of the alien technology and its potential. Vern, driven by his insatiable curiosity, had devised a way to amplify the energy we discovered. "If we can harness this power, we can create a defense strong enough to repel any future attacks," he explained, his eyes alight with excitement. The atmosphere buzzed with determination as Jarek and I trained, preparing our bodies and minds for the challenges that lay ahead. We became adept at wielding the energy blasts, our skills sharpening with every passing day. But I couldn't shake the feeling of impending danger. Khazar was out there, and his promise of vengeance echoed in my mind. We needed a plan that would not only protect us, but also take the fight to him. "Let's use what we've learned," I proposed one evening as we gathered around a holographic display of the ancient map. "We can locate the other portals and secure them before Khazar can regroup." "That's a solid plan," Jarek agreed, studying the map closely. "If we can control the portals, we can dictate the terms of engagement. Khazar won't stand a chance." Vern chimed in. "We should set out in teams. I can stay here and continue working on stabilizing our energy output while you both scout the nearest portal location." With a firm strategy in place, we gathered supplies and prepared for our journey. I felt a sense of unity and purpose among us, and as we made our way through the tunnels, I knew we were ready for whatever awaited us. As we approached the location of the first portal, we could see its shimmering surface glowing faintly in the darkness. "This is it," Jarek said, excitement and tension lacing his voice. "If we can secure this, we'll be one step closer to gaining the upper hand." We stepped cautiously toward the portal, feeling the energy radiating from it. Suddenly, a chilling presence filled the air. Khazar's laughter echoed around us, sending chills down my spine. "You think you can hide from me? I will always find you, humans." The portal flared with energy, and from its depths emerged Khazar, flanked by an even larger army of Xylarite warriors. Their eyes glinted with malice, and I could sense the power gathering around them. "Prepare yourselves," I shouted, igniting the energy within me. We have to protect the portal. The battle erupted in an instant. Energy blasts erupted from both sides, filling the cavern with light and sound. Khazar fought with ferocity, his movements fluid and deadly as he weaved through our defenses. But we were ready. "Now!" I shouted, coordinating our attacks. Vern's amplification of the energy proved vital as we pushed back against the onslaught. "Jerk, flank left, I'll draw his fire," I called, my heart racing as I engaged Khazar head-on. His strength was overwhelming, but I felt the pulse of the ancient technology flowing through me, granting me resilience. As the battle raged on, I could feel the tide beginning to shift. Jerk's agile maneuvers drew the attention of several warriors, allowing me to focus on Khazar. I could sense his frustration growing as he realized he was losing ground. "You may be strong, but you are still outnumbered," Khazar shouted, unleashing a torrent of energy toward me. I barely dodged, rolling to the side as I redirected my energy. "Not for long," I countered, my own energy blasting back at him. The impact sent him staggering, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Drawing on every ounce of strength, I called upon the symbols once more, feeling their energy surge around me. "Together," I shouted, reaching out to Jerk and Vern. They responded instinctively, focusing their energy on Khazar. The combined force erupted, a brilliant wave of light and power that enveloped him. "No!" he screamed, desperation lacing his voice as he fought against the energy. With one final surge, we pushed forward, sending Khazar and his army tumbling back toward the portal. "You will not stop this," he roared, before the energy reached a crescendo, sending him crashing through the portal, sealing it behind him. The cavern fell silent, the echoes of battle fading into the stillness. We stood victorious, breathing heavily as the realization washed over us. "We did it," Jerk said, disbelief and triumph mingling in his voice. Vern grinned, wiping sweat from his brow. "That should buy us some time. If Khazar comes back, he'll be facing an entirely different force." As we regrouped, I felt a sense of closure settle within me. The threat had been neutralized, at least for now, but I knew that the knowledge we had gained was just the beginning. We had unlocked a door to a universe filled with possibilities, and it was up to us to decide how to wield that power. "Let's secure the portals and uncover more of this technology," I suggested. "There's so much out there waiting for us." Together, we began our journey anew, prepared to explore the mysteries of the universe, united in purpose and strength. As we stepped into the light of the future, I realized that the greatest battles were often those fought within ourselves. In the face of the unknown, we had chosen to rise, and together, we would shape the destiny of humanity among the stars.